welcome to Vintage Hollywood Archive. Cab Calloway is a unique musical talent that kept my memory nostalgic about the golden age of jazz music, and I will continue to cherish his creativity. He was a marvel to many because he wrote, sang, danced, and played the instrument amidst an excited audience that would ever be grateful for the lively big band era of the early 1930s, a rare musical genius that symbolized a more refined icon of the early African-American performers. His famous Heidi-Ho signature continued to be a melody unto our ears several years after. Make sure to watch the video until the end, and if you're new here, don't forget to join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Vintage Hollywood Archive channel. Cab Calloway was a highly energetic gentleman who worked at length until his strength could no longer carry him, and he left exceptional history behind. Farewell to this musical mentor. He was one of those who inspired my father to start doing band music performances, which I nearly inherited. With Cab Calloway, it's never over until it's over. That is one way I could describe this great musical icon who devoted his talent and energy to engaging humanity with several hours of humor and relaxation each time he was on stage. I and my generation will remain grateful for his creative invention, especially that epic song, Minnie the Moocher, that excited humanity. Fans have immortalized his name with that song because they appreciated his position as a pioneering singer, inventive songwriter, band leader, and remarkable Hollywood actor. In the 1920s, when he started a career journey in the entertainment industry, I learned he kept faith in the system and remained active in music throughout his golden years. Even when most people thought he was going to slow down, retire, and rest on old successes and possibly leave the stage for the likes of my father, who tailed his performances and understood every aspect of them, his spirit remained strongly focused on the ultimate mission to bring joy and harmony through showbiz. For obvious reasons, Cab Calloway kept a full schedule of touring with his band and signing his autographed song. The reason his audience fondly dubbed him the Dean of American Jive, a name he earned because of the joys that the jazzy big band sound brought to generations of Americans. Each time I reflect on Cab Calloway's long career that spans more than half a century, I'm awed by his sheer longevity of energy and the positive attitude he upheld until he left humanity for eternal rest in 1994 when he reached an enviable age of 86. I would quickly remind his teeming fans that Cab Calloway remains a monument against the common typecast of the sad black jazz musician plagued by drug addiction and related delinquencies. Even though he was exposed to these social mischiefs, he was able to live above them by concentrating on the integrity of the music. I still remember what he said in 1990 while answering questions from the media in Chicago. He told the world that he did his best to concentrate on his performance and tried to forget that there were hardly any blacks in the audience he was entertaining. This is why fans would always see Cab Calloway as one man who danced where angels feared to tread. His type of determination helped create the charismatic hipster image and a genuine melodic endowment that made him one of the most famous 20th century performers. Maybe I should say that he bridged the gap between people of different colors and brought humanity together, especially the great Africans, who keenly identified with his music because of the possible common ancestral heritage. What else do you know about Cab Calloway and his legendary musical exploit? Cab Calloway is the premier black artist of the Harlem Revival. His impressive singing ability gave him a place in the Cotton Club in Harlem, New York City, where he became a regular player, mixing jazz and vaudeville and winning for himself a place in history as a master of energetic scat singer, a man who led one of the United States' most renowned big bands up to the last part of the 1940s. Cab Calloway's band crew comprised a conglomerate of trumpeters Dizzy Gillespie, Jonah Jones, and Adolphus Doc Cheatham, and saxophonists Ben Webster and Leon Chu Berry, plus the notable guitarist Danny Baker and bassist Milt Hinton, not forgetting drummer Cozy Cole. I was astonished when he described himself as a loner in his memoir, Of Minnie the Moocher and Me. Born Cabell Calloway III, a Christmas Day birth that occurred in 1907, somewhere in Rochester. He spent the early part of his childhood in Rochester before moving to Baltimore, where he grew up with his mother who was a schoolteacher and his attorney father. An educated, elite-class African-American family, Martha Reed and Cable Calloway Jr. were happy parents until Calloway's father died and his mother Martha remarried John Fortune. Cab Calloway became partially independent, like a typical African child with big dreams. He took time off from school to earn money for himself by vending newspapers, shining shoes, and assisting horses at the Pimlico racetrack, including betting on horse races. At the time, he spent his spare time on the streets and hustled for survival, and would spend a better part at the racetracks than he did in school. By the time he turned 14, Cab already had an intense urge to sing as he took voice lessons and learned to play the drums. Calloway soon found himself pulling with pianist Johnny Jones and his Arabian Tent Orchestra. That was the period he made himself known to his locality as a music starlet, started from grassroots and gradually moved to the top. He played in Kansas City clubs and ballrooms in the last part of the 1920s. After graduating from Frederick Douglass High School, Calloway followed his older sister, Blanche, on tour for the Black Musical Review Plantation Days. He was particularly inspired by Blanche, who became successful in music before him. His parents wanted him to be something different, but young Calloway wanted a life of his own, a life inspired by an innate desire. Not even activities at Crane College in Chicago could stop him from pursuing his interest in singing. You can trust what young and vibrant Calloway was doing when he passed his nights at Chicago's Dreamland Cafe, Sunset Cafe, and Club Berlin, playing as a singer, MC, and drummer boy. During this period, he learned a lot from singer Adelaide Hall and performed with Louis Armstrong, credited for his scat style, before focusing on his band, the Alabamians. It was when the group separated in New York and Calloway became a singer in Connie's Hot Chocolate's music review, where he established himself as a credible vocalist with Ain't Misbehavin' by Fats Waller, song that his commercial success started. Now the Missourians also needed him to lead their band. Sooner, the Missourians changed to Cab Calloway and his orchestra, and were contracted as a stand-in for Duke Ellington Orchestra at the Cotton Club in Harlem. That temporal engagement became permanent as his excellent performances soared. Expectedly, his talent extended to NBC's radio performances, where he appeared alongside Walter Winchell and Bing Crosby and became the pioneer African-American to broadcast a nationally syndicated radio show. Cab Calloway became the great musician he is today when in 1931 he came out with the famous song, Minnie the Moocher, which turned his American audience into happy listeners as the song rented the airwaves and became the first single by an African American to sell 1 million copies. His scat-singing zoot suit and hair-whipping pattern were recognized in several Hollywood movies and a series of Betty Boop animations. And of course, you cannot talk about Cab Calloway without mentioning what is now known as his trademark scat catchphrase, "Hi-de hi-de hi," which attracted columnists and various entertainment writers to start writing as they understood it. He was one of the earliest performers that purposefully used scat singing tactics. Analysts say musicians use this random nonsense syllable styles of presentation when they forget their lyrics while on stage. And for Calloway, his audience loved his invention of those random letters and the rhythmic sound they made. He wrote songs with scat choruses, as evidenced in the epic track Minnie the Moocher, composed with a hi-de 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 ho chorus. The acceptability of his talent worldwide is the reason fans still talk about Cab Calloway's legacy that is not dying so soon. Like everyone, Cab Calloway had challenges while he was pursuing his highly successful career. One of those challenges was the 1945 Kansas occurrence. When an unfortunate incident occurred in Kansas City that year between Calloway and his security personnel, the various reporting of the incident described him as the master of the hi-de-ho, and some talked of him as his hi-de highness of ho-de-ho. That was how the fun he created went. Calloway and his pal Felix Payne got more than they deserved from an overzealous police officer identified as William Todd. And what was the issue? They wanted to visit bandleader Lionel Hampton, who was to perform at Plamour Ballroom. The police god Todd, who thought they were not needed at the event, refused to allow them in. One thing led to another as Calloway found himself thrashed with injuries that landed him in the hospital, and later arrested and charged with drinking and resisting arrest, but that was far from the truth. Sober and respectful Calloway said he had a ticket for professional courtesy to enter the event and seat with Hampton, and was supposed to be treated as an honored guest alongside his friend Payne. But before he could get out his ID from his wallet to identify himself, the fanatical Todd grabbed his arm and shoved him away toward the door. The last thing he heard was Todd's voice sounded, "Get the hell out of here." And before he could say, "Jack Robinson," arms were locked around his friend's neck so he couldn't see what was happening as Todd shoved him off the steps and down to the floor. With his last strength, he tried to get up and could not believe what fell on him. Subconsciously, he could see that the excitable cop was playing a solo drum on his head with his .45 semi-automatic gun butt. The hard hit from Todd's fist and one from that rod landed on his head and left Calloway with blood streaming down his fragmented scalp. His little finger got shattered because he tried to protect his head with his hand from the raging gun butt. When Hampton got wind of the incident, he suddenly ended the concert because he was not happy with what transpired at the entrance gate. Soon the matter came up for hearing. Wittig and Todd, who was directly linked to the incident, told the court that Calloway refused to identify himself and that he and his friend appeared drunk and disrespectful. Todd alleged the contrary, that the two men fought him, adding that he did not recognize Calloway as a performer. And in a bid to defend himself as a cop, he did what he did, including using the barrel of his gun on his head. In a case with no other form of evidence except his word against the police officer, it was very unlikely the case would go his way. But no, he won because intelligent Judge Earl Frost, who on a normal day never witnessed over 50 people in his court, saw over 700 sympathizers and subsequently dismissed the allegation. That was the spirit that followed the man Cab Calloway, a man who lived to make history anywhere his name was mentioned. His fans were not happy with the way the case was dismissed without punishment for the offender. It prompted 6 civil rights organizations, including the NAACP in 1946, to demand that Todd was fired. They soon realized that internal punishment had been carried out on him through salary reduction, and he resigned from the force following the pay cut. During World War II, Calloway was seen entertaining troops in the U.S. and Canada. And when the war ended, he returned to club job and Broadway performances. He was very remarkable playing the character of Sportin' Life in Porgy and Bess by George Gershwin. Fans will also remember Calloway in his Broadway role as Horace Vandergelder in the black-only version of Hello, Dolly. Critics say he never wasted a step in the energetic show. He was always thrashing his stride. Rough times hit the big band music industry around 1947, and Calloway faltered the big band to a combo and focused on his Broadway revival shows, where he continued performing even when he was in his 80s. At some point, his daughter Lael joined him in performing and making sure that his audience remained entertained. Calloway was married to his first wife, Winona Betty Conacher. In 1928, the couple adopted a daughter, Constance, but divorced in 1949. He would marry again Zulme McNeil, also known as Nuffy, that same year. The couple raised 2 daughters, including Lael. When he was asked to name a hero or heroes that inspired him in this music business, if any, Calloway was playful about the concept of heroes and rather told his fans that the idea of heroes is not an easy thing to understand, but that the only heroes he knows are the music notes. The music itself is his hero. Cab Calloway was also active as an actor and author. He was featured in some films including International House and Stormy Weather. I Heard his image popularized the Jitterbug Party in 1932 with his Jumpin' Jive, Reefer Man, and so on songs. His book, Hepster's Dictionary, was said to have sold about 2 million copies. To successfully manage his career in the big band era, Calloway worked with brilliant musicians, as mentioned earlier, who were ready and worked with him because of the high wages he paid. On why everyone thought he was not just a musician, but a legend, Calloway told fans jokingly that he was a legend. Because, in his words, you can't be in show business for 60 years and not be a legend. I agree with this great singer. When the news of his stroke came in 1994, the report said he went down at his home in Westchester County. Some of us knew that it was time for this great talent. It was a clear case of the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, when he died 5 months after as a result of pneumonia. Sadly, just a month before he was due to celebrate his 87th birthday. At the time of his death, Cab Calloway is survived by his wife, 5 daughters, and 7 grandsons. Cab Calloway's gibberish made him rich. But showbiz was never an easy job. Why was Lena Horne sick to death of Ava Gardner? Let's find out in this video.